So, over the past couple of days, Dana White has done a couple of interviews hinting at the next possible Whitehouse style event, or as he calls them, impossible events. Most recently, we had the Whitehouse UFC Freedom 250. Prior to that, the year before, 2 years before, when was the Sphere? 2024? And then Marab went on his run in 2025. So we had the Sphere in 2024. We had the Whitehouse in 2026. Dana White has hinted that we are going to get, as he calls it, the next impossible event. He has Craig Borsari, the executive producer of the UFC. You might have seen his name at the end of the UFC events. But of course, this then hits Twitter, and then Twitter runs rampant with speculation as to what it could be. Now, I'd done a video just prior to the Whitehouse card looking at ways that UFC could repurpose the claw that they used as like the sort of lighting rig for over the top of the octagon, the one that they used at the Whitehouse, how we can repurpose that. I came up with, I think, 5 ideas. One was the Pyramids of Giza, the Eiffel Tower, which I think honestly could be the most likely, seeing as we have Strickland versus Amavov lined up and Cyril Gann versus Tom Aspinall. But it will depend on turnaround time again. Craig Borsari's looking into it. He's doing recon right now. But the other one was the Colosseum, which has been looked at before for an event, but it would cost too much. I think Dana White said it would cost 150 million or whatever, because you would need like actual restoration to get the event inside the Colosseum. It would just be too much money. What were the other ones I put in there? I had UFC Gaza, of course, at the end as a joke. But I mean, we're going to come on to something similar probably towards the end of the video. But there was UFC at the Bernabeu in Madrid with Islam and Ilya as the main event. Holy shit, how times have changed. That was a month ago. We're talking about Islam versus Ilya. Good grief. Although, depending on the UFC 330 result tonight, I mean, who knows? Who knows? But we also had the claw to just replace the Meta Apex. Turns out that's not happening. They just renovated the Apex instead. Great move. Everybody loves the Apex. But the actual plan, in fact, what I will say is, when looking at the replies in the comments under the video of Dana White saying, you know, we're looking into the next impossible event, I was looking to see what other people were sort of saying it could be. And a lot of it was like, you know, Pyramids of Giza, that stuff that had been done already for boxing. Some of it was like Alcatraz, which the Al Sheikh guy, is it Turkey Al Sheikh, the boxing guy, the Riyadh season guy? He was looking into doing that for some sort of boxing event, so I suppose that's not completely out of the question. Also, other people talking about doing it on some sort of warship, like an event on a ship of some kind. I don't know if they mean some sort of cruise, UFC on God knows what sort of cruise from where to where, or if they're just going to take it out into the middle of the water, have the event, and then come back. I don't know. But speaking of which, why don't they do it on that USS Abraham Lincoln that people are currently jumping off of? I think there's some sort of protest going on where the people on board think they've been deployed for too long and they're now deciding to jump off the boat. I hope that it's in some sort of protest. I've heard that it's people actually trying to, like, you know, friendly fire their own self, not their comrades, but their, you know, touchy subject. But let's give them something to live for. Let's put some slime outs on the USS Abraham Lincoln. That should keep people around, I suppose. Maybe they feel more fulfilled at their job and they then don't feel the need to check out, I suppose. But that's what other people were saying. Now, what my original thought was, and the actual original plan for this video was like, you know what, UFC at the fucking Vatican, because we've already gone from government property. Let's move on to religious property and let's put UFC at God's house. And I was thinking, man, we could build a serious card for this. You know, we could Charles Oliveira, illuminated by God, taking the belt off of Justin Gaethje. How fitting at God's house, literally. Put Yan and Marab in there. Peter Yan doing God's work, 50-45ing Marab again. And of course, Bryce Mitchell versus Alejandro Topuria. It was lining up perfectly. And then I remembered that there is a big statue in the middle of the Vatican, the obelisk. And in case anybody's offended by this, I am indoctrinated in. Okay, so I can speak for this Catholic, not all Catholics, but for myself. And I was thinking, man, could you actually move that statue and put the octagon in there? And turns out when I googled it, AI overview, of course, says you can move the statue, but it's been there since like 37 AD. So I don't know if people would be too happy moving it. I don't know if people would be too happy about moving the obelisk and putting the octagon in so that we can have some slime outs at God's house. I would be okay with it, but I don't think other people would be okay with it. Again, not speaking for all Catholics, just this one here. But that was actually the original plan for this video, because when I heard that Dana White was saying we have this next impossible event, my immediate thought was like, oh, what building could it be at? Because I'm stuck in sort of Whitehouse mode. Other people are talking about doing it on ships or some sort of, Fight Island #2 on Alcatraz or the Statue of Liberty, whatever. I was still stuck in the Whitehouse style mindset. And I went, you know what? The Vatican, because it's got that big St. Peter's, right? It's got that big space in the middle. We can throw the octagon in there and get some seating around there, get the claw out again and stick it right over the top. But then you do some research and you see the obelisk in the middle. And again, see, just for the AI overview, right? It was brought to Rome, okay, transported to Rome in 37 AD by Emperor Caligula and placed in the Circus of Gaius and Nero. Its current site moved to its present position by architect Domenico Fontana under Pope Sixtus V on September 10th, 1586, requiring 900 men and 140 horses. I think we might be able to move it and put the octagon in there. I'm not kidding. I hope Craig Bossari is doing his recon, because I think it can get moved and then we'll put it back immediately after. Again, I hope other people aren't mad about it, but I think it would be kind of cool. But anyway, now that the plan for that is completely scuppered, I say completely scuppered, it is still possible, just highly unlikely. I thought about, okay, where else could this event take place? Because we don't know about it yet. Dana White said he was going to make some phone calls over the weekend and hopefully have some good news soon. So whenever soon is, I don't know, but hopefully it's on the way. And there's also been some other, of course, AI slop, some AI renderings of here, why don't we put the octagon here, here, or here? You can see it on the screen right now. We have it at the Christ the Redeemer statue. Again, that card sort of makes up itself, doesn't it? The Brazilians, Poatan, Prates, Oliveira, Hufe, get them all on the card. And honestly, that could be best case scenario in terms of entertainment value on a card. But moving over here to Osaka Castle in Japan, this would have been so good had Horiguchi not just got beat by Manel Cap and KO'd, and also would have been good for like a Tatsura Teira title fight, or even the fight against Joshua Van, because it was a banger, of course. But I feel as though the sort of Japanese hype has cooled down a little bit, seeing as they both lost. We still have Kai Asakura, who hopefully can sort of pull it together for the Japanese. And not to say that Tatsura Teira and Kyoji Horiguchi can't bounce back. I would hope so. But in terms of moving a card to, again, the impossible location, the AI rendering here has Osaka Castle. But in terms of moving or just having an event in Japan, I think it's probably on the back burner. Again, Yuri Prohaska could also be on that card. Samurai, he could also fit in there. Next up is the Acropolis in Athens, Greece. And again, I need to say it, these aren't actual fucking locations I'm coming up with here if we should do this. It's just what other people have thought, here, wouldn't this look cool? And it would look cool. As you'll see, the crowds here aren't massive. But again, the thought behind the Whitehouse wasn't selling tickets. And even at the Sphere, they done that knowing that it was going to be a loss no matter how many tickets were sold. So it doesn't really matter the attendance. I see trying to get people up to the top of the Christ the Redeemer statue would be difficult. But again, see, for the Athens sort of Greece location, I can't really come up with some sort of theme. Even though there wasn't really too much of a theme for the Whitehouse, they tried to connect the Sphere to Noche. But even for the Whitehouse, like, one American in the main event, it was almost happenstance because they wanted it to be Ilya versus Islam, so they're not really committed to the sort of themed event. I think they would. I think Brazil and Japan are probably different cases because they're other countries. When they go abroad, they try and fit as many of those fighters on the card as possible. So if they went to Japan, they would try and flood it with Japanese fighters. They just don't have a lot. Horiguchi is somebody, Taira is somebody, Asakura in Japan is somebody, even if he's not really in America. But Yuri Prohaska fits the bill for that kind of card, even though he's not Japanese, he still has connections there. For the Brazil card, I think there's just too many. I don't think they would do an on location type card for Brazil for Rio. They just don't really need to do it. But they might be the only audience that would vehemently support an Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison fight, which apparently we're just never going to get. I don't know. Is Kayla Harrison still injured? I'm not up to date. I'm not on the Kayla Harrison beat, but if anybody else could fill me in, that would be great because I'm not going to look it up. But yeah, look, the Acropolis is a cool location. The amphitheater is actually still like built in, so it would literally be like putting the octagon and like commentary at rings at like cage side just down at the bottom. And I don't know what you would put together for lighting, but not my problem, actually. But lastly, of course, the big one, the famous one, the one that everybody wants is the Colosseum. Of course, the comparisons to, what the Colosseum was actually used for and what UFC is today, there's obvious correlation between the two of them. And while this probably would be my most wanted, most anticipated, if I could pick a location, this would be it. I also think Eiffel Tower, which we covered in the last video, would probably be another one. Just because the actual infrastructure is there. When Dana White spoke about the Whitehouse, he explained it as in like, I want you to be able to see the Whitehouse behind the cage. I think there's enough space around the Eiffel Tower to actually have the octagon, be able to see the Eiffel Tower in the background, and space for an audience roundabout. And then what he had at like the Ellipse, I think there will still be space for people who maybe don't get a ticket for the event, but to watch it on a big screen. I just think it's one of the ones where you could look at and go, you know what, I could maybe see it. But we also have a rendering for the octagon being put in the Dagestani mountains, which I actually kind of like. It would be ridiculous. The altitude would be fucking crazy. And of course, it would benefit the Dagestani fighters to an unbelievable degree. It would almost be an unfair advantage, the altitude. But I would kind of like to see it. I'm not going to lie. I don't know about feasibility, but it's one of those things. This guy cared enough to make an AI rendering of it. So I'm going to talk about it. I like it. I think it would be funny. Although, could you imagine the fucking lineup they would give us? Could you imagine the lineup that would be made for that card? Could you also imagine looking at that audience? How many Papapkas would be in there? How many no mustache and beard combinations would be in that crowd? The lack of women in that crowd. This is actually my number one location. UFC Dagestan. Make it happen. But in all seriousness, I don't know what location is on Dana White's mind. I would imagine that it is somewhere in America. And when somebody said, like, on a ship, I don't know why, but see the sort of theme of, like, Dana White's big into, America. And I don't know if it was just to sort of hide the fact that maybe the Freedom 250 card had something also to do with Trump's birthday, and we sort of blended it into America's birthday as well. I don't know. He's on a big America kick right now, and I could see him wanting to do something for, like, the troops. I could see him wanting to do something like that. They used to do a fight for the troops. I don't know. Is that where that Corey Hill got injured? I done a video looking at the Anderson Silva Conor McGregor like leg break, and I think he might get hurt on one of those shows. Anyway, irrelevant besides the point. But when somebody mentioned that, oh, it could take place on a ship or something like that, I thought, you know what, that's not the craziest thing. But yeah, look, that's it. Not the video that I had planned, but close enough to it. Speculation. A speculative video, how UFC can repurpose the Claw Part 2. Let me know where you think UFC's next, as Dana White put it, impossible event. Where do you think it's going to take place? What location would you like to see UFC dust off the Claw and put on some fucking good fights? Because that Whitehouse card, top to bottom, delivered in ways that we didn't even expect, and I want to see another one of them. A 7-fight card, all good fights. Give me more of that, please. So let me know, where do you want the next impossible event to be? Reaction for tonight's main event, Ian Machado Gary taking on the champion Islam Makhachev. All reaction to that tomorrow. Might react to the rest of the card depending on how good it is. I didn't preview the rest of the card because it looked terrible. But as Dana White says, don't judge a card before it happens. Maybe it's the best card ever. Although, God bless you. If you are from Philadelphia and you bought a ticket to that event, looking at that lineup, God bless you. You have more disposable income than the majority of people. So congratulations. And I'll see you all tomorrow for review and reaction. Well, I just wrapped up that video and forgot I didn't even follow up on UFC Gaza. Okay, this is what happens when you don't script the video and you just talk. UFC Tel Aviv was supposed to be on the docket to talk about, and I think we can all agree Bilal Muhammad must be on the card, and seeing as we're doing this for Bibi Netanyahu, he's going to fight Carlos Prates. And of course, Gene Silva will challenge Alexander Volkanovski for the featherweight title. And I suppose Justin Gaethje can also be on the card if it means that much to him. He will lose to Charles Oliveira, though, in the main event. So there you go. I almost forgot to follow up on the UFC Gaza. They're going to do UFC Tel Aviv. That's going to be your top 3 fights. Like and subscribe.